Good evening. Ari Donio, I'm from Franklin Lakes. Thank you for setting the tone, Ms. LaForgia, but I'd like to remind the board, Philip A. Bessler versus Board of Education versus West Windsor, if you're not aware of it. I guess Ms. Sullivan or Mr. Fogarty can explain you the implication of it, as well as New York Times versus Sullivan. It's pretty much stating that we have the freedom of speech to tell you whatever we want, and you gotta take it. Now, having said that, we all seen the letter that was sent from the U.S. Board of Education to President Biden. I would like to understand exactly the relationship between this school board and the U.S. school board and how it manifests, if and in any way it does. The second thing that I want to ask is these nice two students that are here. I know I'm not supposed to address them, but a couple weeks ago I asked Mr. Vishiklia if the board or if the school district taught Constitution Day in Constitution Day as it has set within the federal law for all institutions who receive federal funds. This school district does receive federal funds. So I'm asking again, and the two teachers here can attest. They can say, when is Constitution Days, right? Do you know it? Lastly, I want to take you a quick back up through time, although we have a missing board here, and that's about Constitution or freedom of speech, which I started by mentioning. When we were talking about curriculum, the board was very happy to allow everybody to speak. They actually enhanced the minute for the public to speak on one meeting. Then when time comes, the board exposed the curriculum. Ms. Caroline, in his speech, while I wasn't here, actually says it was the first time transparency. Thank you, but it's too late. Now we have to open all the curriculum all the time. Then what happened is that 3 members of this board tried to sneak the curriculum, avoiding and not letting the public to speak, although it was agreed that we're going to have another week to see it. And after that, week after, when the curriculum actually did pass on a vote, the board, in a vote of 4, it was Mr. Caroline, Mr. Serchado, Ms. King, and Mr. Fortunato voted yes. Ms. Colicordes voted abstain, and I think 3 voted no, to give the public more time to speak after the decision. So what happened to the freedom of speech? You didn't want to hear what we have to say about your decision. Lastly, after that, a board member who's not here calls some people right-wing extremists. Shame on you for putting that, and for a board member to talk to the public like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Joel Anch, Franklin Lakes. I want to talk a little about school night. I had emailed Mr. Shika and the Bergen County Board of Superintendent Delisio as well. My disappointment that it was basically canceled because virtual really doesn't cut it, and there was no science that was based on that. And I also had emailed back and forth with Mr. Shika a little bit about that, and I understand his feelings on what he thought and everything else. And I still don't agree with that. And then I pointed out that they were masked at Indian Hills and no one was there. And one teacher said we had to wear masks even though no one's here. And Mr. Ashika said that was miscommunication. That won't happen tonight at Ramapo. That happened at Ramapo. I couldn't meet any of my children's teachers because I really have no idea what they look like. Again, I don't know why that happened. I understand your thinking with the numbers and everything, but honestly, even in middle school, most people go to back to school night the first year the kids are in middle school, not like elementary school where you go every single night because they get a feel for the school. And then not as many go from the upper classes, and that would be the same thing in the high school. And the most important year to really go is the freshman year. And now you're talking about the experience that they need to have at the open house, which is very important. It's the same thing that you have at back to school night. And a lot of parents, some don't go, some only have one person that goes. You can't really look at those numbers and say how many people are coming, and it still was based on no science. And now you're talking about open house where I went with my wife and both of my children, and only one was coming, and that's 4 people. So you're probably looking at a lot more people that'll be going to that, which is good, and that's what people need to do. And my son made his decision over there, even though he was a year behind my daughter. I'm just not really happy with some of that. I don't like to see also board members putting other board members down and arguing. It's a tremendous waste of time when we could be spending time on other things that are way more important. I also, much to my dismay, the last few times I've come here at night, we have an American flag outside on a flagpole that stands for all types of things that I really don't even have to talk about. And it is not illuminated at night. If it's not illuminated at night, it should be taken down, folded correctly, and stored correctly. I'm not really sure why that's like that. Maybe someone else has no clue, but I really hope that that can be remedied in the future. And I also wanted to say that this past Saturday, we had an event, and a lot of children were there because my son's bar mitzvah from the district. And I did want to say there's a lot of great kids in this town, because so many of these kids came up to me and said, "Thank you, Mr. Ange, for having us here. I really appreciate it. I had a great time." And I was very touched to find almost every single child that was there from this district had nice things to say.
Thank you. And congratulations.
Ardith Cardenas, Franklin Lakes. I was a little disappointed to not see Mr. Fortunato here tonight, and I almost thought I would save what I had to say until he was here, but because some of his comments were brought up, I decided to speak about those as well. And for anyone who wasn't here last week, the last meeting, anyone who has forgotten, I'm going to quote what he said, verbatim. Quote, "If you don't already know my position on a lot of these things, it should be clear now to the members on the left of the audience here, okay, that I do not agree with Mr. Budo, I do not agree with Ms. LaForgia on most topics, and I do not agree with Ms. Sullivan on most topics, okay? They represent an extreme right wing, as do some members of this audience." So I kind of sat with that for a couple days, and I thought, what could he possibly have meant by that? So I decided I'm going to look up the definition of right-wing extreme, extreme right-wing, and extremism. So here are the definitions I found. The extreme right wing includes both vigilante groups and political parties that are often openly racist, have clear ties to fascism, and also employ violence and aggressive tactics. These groups may operate either outside or within the realm of electoral policies, or both. They tend to oppose procedural democracy. Now here's a definition of extremism. The vocal or active opposition to fundamental values, including democracy, the rule of law, individual liberty, and mutual respect and tolerance of different faiths and beliefs. This is what he called us. Let me assure Mr. Fortunato and those of you on the board and everyone sitting in this audience that we love democracy and the rule of law. We love liberty and we love justice for all, everyone. We love the principle that all people and institutions are subject to law and that it is applied fairly to all. In these meetings, I never hear anyone accusing or using the terms like Republican or Democrat or left or right. That was him that did that. To be clear, the things that affect the children are bipartisan issues and should be of great concern regardless of political affiliation. So am I to believe that he's trying to crush political dissonance by calling us right-wing extremists? By making it political, because that's what he did. The topic of masks and CRT are bringing people together along political lines. So is that what he wants to, why he's calling names? Because he doesn't want that unity? Because he wants to slow the momentum of us attending the meetings? I can't speak for anyone else here, but I can certainly tell you it only strengthens my resolve.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? No.
Hi, Amy Eilert, Oakland. I was also at the meeting last week, and I did hear what Mr. Fortunato said. And I also heard the response from other community members that got up to speak afterward, expressing their outrage and disappointment because he was, quote, a Republican. How could he be saying those things? Which is also invoking politics, partisan politics, into this room, into the Board of Education, into the community. So I think we all need to take a breath from that and start focusing on the real issue, which is the children of the district, the health and safety and protection of them, and their right to freely express themselves, which is their First Amendment right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, can I have a motion to close public session?
No one, motion to, oh, we have one more, Philomena.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Hi, my name is Marisol Kozlowski. I'm from Oakland. I actually have a completely different subject to bring to the board. Hope it's a little bit of fresh air. Basically, I have a 7th grader, and I have a freshman who graduated from Indian Hills, top of her class. They are both overachieving students. And we don't often talk about the difficulty and the trials and tribulations of overachieving students when you have the ones that want to pursue education more and more and more. And one of the things that I'm concerned about when I open textbooks and when I look at our curriculum is math, something nobody's been talking about. I'm very, very concerned because our current sophomores are the first class to go through the Oakland school system with Common Core mathematics as a base from 1st grade on. Our seniors transitioned from Common Core in 3rd grade. When did we all learn multiplication tables? And then they go into high school and they start off with algebra, geometry, trig, and calculus the way we learned, when they have a very, very different base. Not only do they have a different base, they have a completely different vocabulary. We were taught raw education. We were taught skill and drill. We were taught the multiplication table. I memorize it because math doesn't change. They were taught 6 different roads to the same answer. And then they were taught, now you have to figure out which road works best for you and in what situation you should use that. Theoretically, that sounds fantastic. But when they go into standardized testing and are asked the same questions we were asked, the just simple fact of which road do I take to get to that answer takes too much time on a standardized test and slows them down. You can tell that this is happening and this transition is not happening because an entirely new industry has developed. All of a sudden, everywhere you look, there's Hunterton Learning Centers and C2 Educations and Mathnetics or Mathlympics, whatever it is. Most of them focus on math. If you look at the first thing always asked for out of our NHS tutors, it's math. If you look at the list of requests, it's math, 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 chemistry, math, 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 Spanish. It's always math. So if you don't have the money to send your students to get a private tutor or someone else to help them, it's very difficult for your students to succeed. Even my overachieving students, the problem that they have is not knowing what question to ask. And the reason I'm here is because I just got hit with it from my 7th grader. I said to her, how come you just finally did lousy on a test? And she looked at me, she said to me, Mom, I don't know what to ask. And it's that difference in vocabulary. I'm very concerned now that the students coming in have been having Common Core education since the 1st grade. And those NHS tutors, those honor society kids, those overachievers and overperformers that we love and adore, who are tutoring for free and helping the kids that really need and really struggle, I think we need to start being proactive and looking at investing in the math department, helping to train them, helping to give them a little bit of math training so they can transition those kids from a Common Core curriculum vocabulary to a more logical one that we grew up with that they're being tested on, because Common Core never hit the high schools the way we were promised. What was it, 8 years ago, 9 years ago? Okay, so I'm just acting for a little proactivity from the board.
Okay, thank
Talk
you.
to the math teachers, thank you. And I'm sorry I exceeded time.
Thank you.